Hello, welcome to the Woke Wild Women's podcast. I am Roxanne Sailors,
And I am Bethany Evans.
and with us today, live and in person, we have Ivy Munyon.
Hi. Hi,
So,
Ivy.
Ivy and I worked together at my old job, and we always had a connection. We talk about crystals and especially about tarot, and Ivy just strikes me as an old soul who, in a young body, who, the things that I've heard from you about your childhood and about your growing up, I just think are fascinating and have made for a really well-rounded and woke woman.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So she's somebody that I really wanted to bring on here, not because I've known her for a long time, but because I really want to hear your story.
Great.
So,
Yeah, I'm excited to share it. It'll be good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of came into this feeling of being woke, and your backstory.
I feel like there's kind of two separate paths that people take. It's either something very natural, something that you're kind of born with and raised with. Then there's sometimes people who are from polar opposite spectrums, and then they just kind of teach themselves this lifestyle and things like that. I was definitely a natural, and I had my family. So this is something that my family has been doing for a really long time because my grandfather is from India. And so within my Indian family, a lot of my relatives, they read palms, they read birth charts, they do all sorts of readings. And so when we get together, we get to read for one another and just kind of trade it within our family. Then my grandmother is from Slovakia, and she's always been very practicing with witchcraft and things like that. She learned it through the Roman gypsies who would come through the town essentially. And so she's been practicing, and she's just very intuitive. She predicted her own father's death, and she's just always on it with her dreams that she has. Like, if my grandma tells you she has a dream about you, then you should probably pay attention to it. But yeah, so she's been that way. My mom's very intuitive in that sense too. And so I was raised in trusting that intuition and raised in creating my own rituals, my own practices. And so it's something that I'm thankful that I was really supportive in doing. And when I first started reading tarot and doing the things on my own, I felt very affirmed in that by realizing how much was already carried over through my family.
That's so
yeah,
cool.
It's made it very interesting and affirming having them there.
Yeah.
I absolutely love what you said about how there's usually two paths, because I'm like the opposite. Like, I was not raised in with all of that stuff. And so I kind of just like was led to it on my own, and it became like something completely different that I never really acknowledged as a part of me. So I'm really excited to hear more about your story.
Yeah. So when did you how did you get into tarot specific? Because you do.
Yeah.
So just to make sure that I'm on the same page, you read tarot.
Yeah.
But you also do spells and things on. You have an online business.
I have an online business, and mainly I do tarot, and tarot is really what I got into. But I also do spells for people. I do personalized spells and also rituals for people as well. So I help people write rituals and kind of come into their magic themselves. Because I'm a really strong believer, I guess, in making your own rituals and making your own,
intuitive.
Yeah, your magic is best when it comes from your own space. I don't believe in you should have one central book of magic and you're just going off that and going off. I think there's definitely some benefit in tradition, but a lot of it is just better when you know what feels right and you know what feels good for you. But I didn't really get into tarot for a while until one of my girlfriends growing up, her older sister bought a deck, and we were just casually reading in the basement, and I was in a very abusive relationship at the time, and everyone was telling me that I needed to get out of this relationship. It was bad for me, but I was 14. I didn't care, didn't want to listen. And then I gave myself a reading through her tarot deck, and it was the first time that I actually saw the relationship for what it was, and I just felt really, I don't know, it felt like a completely new point. Like, I felt like I was born at that point, honestly. Like, everything before that felt very different than how my life is now after realizing what tarot could do for me. And so right after that, I bought my own deck, and it's the same deck that I use today. And I just started reading for myself a lot and reading for my friends. And then it would become a thing where we'd have parties and people would be like, Ivy, bring your deck and read for people. And soon enough, I realized that I really needed to make a business and find a way to do this as my life and hobby, career maybe, I don't know.
But definitely as a guide for you, for just kind of
Oh,
tapping into your
absolutely.
intuition.
Right. And that's what I think a big thing of tarot is. A lot of people expect to get answers that, they've never heard before and never thought about. But a lot of tarot is hearing things that you already know and you're already aware of, but it's just reaffirming those aspects.
Right.
And also it just depends on your perception too. There's a lot of times where I give readings for people, and if their perception isn't open to it, it just displays through the reading. And I'm not here to force anyone to believe things. And so when people are a little skeptical, I do what I can, but I'm not here to persuade you one way or another. And if your perception isn't comfortable with it, then I can't change that. So that's definitely a big thing. But yeah.
Well, you've experienced that too, right, Bethany? You've
Uh,
had that just doing readings for people.
Yeah, you can definitely feel when they're resistant to what you're saying. And especially if the same message keeps coming out multiple times.
You're like, clearly there's a message
right.
here.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I've just learned to just be like, okay, well, that's what it says. You can take it or leave it, it's up to you. But I also tell people when I do readings that, I may interpret something, and generally I interpret things in multiple different ways. And so I'll say all the ways that I'm interpreting it. And then I say to them, like, if you're getting something completely different, then go with what you get, because that's what's going to be important to you. So if what I'm saying isn't resonating, but you're getting your own information, like that's the message that's for you.
Right. And I think, another thing that I've realized through reading through people is so many of the readings I get for other people, I realize there's a message for me somewhere in there, which is just unbelievable. I'm always surprised. And also when I do mass readings for people, like if I have a lot of orders or I'm working a party, I realize that there's a lot of similar themes that carry through. And so I think on a global scale, there's a lot of stuff that we're all going through, and tarot really picks up on that.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
All the more reason for us to be having these conversations. And that's one of the reasons why Bethany and I started this, because we just found that we were having, she's in California, I'm in Bellingham, but we were having the same conversations with our circle of women and some men too, just like what's coming up in the world is coming up for so many of us.
Yeah.
So,
and on social media too, it's like I always get confirmations of things that I'm experiencing or messages that I've received, and then I'll go onto Instagram and somebody's posting the exact same thing or something very similar, and I'm like, yeah, this is a theme right now. Guess I'm aligned.
Yeah, totally. So how did you just tell us a little bit about, so you started playing with your friend's deck.
Yeah.
Like, how did you kind of come into how to read the cards, like layouts or what you understood the cards to be? Did you use any like text or?
So not necessarily. I had a lot of books growing up, just kind of about paganism and witchcraft and Wicca and things like that. But I'd never really had an actual tarot book or anything like that. And I'm also a very stubborn person where I don't do very well when people teach me things. I'm very much a self-teacher. And so I kind of had to teach myself how to read tarot. And so it just was a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error and a lot of practicing on people. People in that time period were really my guinea pigs, and I was reading for as many people as I could. And now it just feels very affirming, because there's sometimes because most of my business is over email. And so a lot of the people that I read for, I've never met, know nothing about them. All I have is their email address, and that's all I'm going off of. And there's a lot of times where I get really concerned that I don't know what I'm doing, and I start feeling bad about myself, and I'm like, I'm just pulling out, whatever I'm feeling. But then when I get the messages back and they're like, no, you were completely right about all these things, it makes me feel good. It makes me realize, if I've been doing this and I feel like it's a very natural thing and I've only received really good positive feedback from it, then it's something that I want to keep doing. And I feel like it's definitely a gift that I have, and I want to just keep embellishing that as I get older and have more practice with it, for sure.
Yeah. I have to say that this self-doubt shows up so much for me. Like, I'm like, am I really picking up on this, or am I just making this up?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a crazy thing. And what I realized too through tarot, so I like to get readings from other people a lot, just so I can see what other people are doing and kind of hear what other people, perceive of me and things like that. So I was getting a reading from someone on the street in Boulder, Colorado, which is where I'm from. And he was telling me that I need to trust my intuition more in my readings. And he was saying how he used to have this friend, and he kept getting this like weird voice in his head when he was hanging out with his friend, telling him to stop eating crackers. And he did not know what it meant, thought it was super weird, but he finally blurted it out to his friend. And his friend was like, that is so weird that you say it, because I've been tripping a lot of acid lately. And when I trip acid, I eat a lot of crackers. And so even though it might sound really silly and not, you know, have any pertinence to you, it might ring a bell for someone else and make a lot of sense for them. So that's why after I heard that story, I'm like, you know, I'm just going to let it all out. Even if it sounds weird, even if it makes no sense to me, it might make sense to you.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just curious because I know both the two of you do regular reading. I read mostly for myself. I do read for friends and family, but you two are making it more integral into your business. And so I'm just curious, like how you would read. So do you just have like getting into the nitty gritty? Like, is there a specific layout that you use?
Yeah.
I know you use this, your favorite deck, which is
right. I use my favorite deck, which is the Crystal Visions deck. I don't know if anyone knows what that is.
I that one. How exciting!
I love that deck, and I bought it because of Stevie Nicks. Full disclosure. But yeah, so that's the only deck I use when I read for other people. And when I do the readings, typically, especially for the email ones, if it's in person and people want to do different spreads, I'm completely okay with that. But for email people, since I've never met them, and I like to keep it super consistent, I always say my first readings with people is a 4-card spread, and it's just past, present, future, overall situation, and I just go from there. I really like doing that way because I think it's just general, and I don't really like to have people like think about a certain question or a certain situation. I feel like that's not the point. You should probably just let whatever happens happen. But then when I go in with people, I've definitely cultivated a couple of spreads of my own, and I will introduce those just fine. And if people do, after working with them for a while, have specific questions, I'm more comfortable going into it then. But I think the first reading, for sure, I like to have people just do the general. And doing it by email, people get really confused how that happens, and how I'm able to do it. And I wish there was like a really good explanation for that, but there's not. But I just have to give myself a couple of days for sure. Like some people, they're like, oh, can I have a reading? But I want it, you know, immediately. I typically ask to give me like 3 to 5 business days, because sometimes it's not going to happen and I need to wait till I'm in a good space. Especially because doing the readings by email, it just requires so much time and energy on my behalf, because I have to get really into it and very meditative and try to, you know, reach these people from afar. And so it's a draining process. And so I like to spread them out, and I definitely don't like to do a ton of readings in one day. So I give myself the time, I give myself the space, and I give myself the boundaries to do that by email. So I like that.
Now, how about you, Bethany? I know that you use yours as your coaching. So and you know this, and I think most people who are watching this know that Bethany and I met in an ontological coaching program. Yeah. And so we integrate our ontological coaching into our specific practices, me as a fitness and doula, and her as a life coach and intuitive tarot reader. So how do you integrate that, Bethany?
I'd say I use the framework of what we learned in coaching, definitely, where I do ask, especially if I'm doing like a 60-minute reading, which are generally what I do. I ask them to come in with a topic or a question, something that we can focus on, so we're really clear. Otherwise, it can be too, like, I don't feel confident in like hearing the message or what wants to come through, because I feel like there's too much that comes through. And so it's a way for me to narrow it down. But then sometimes people are like, I don't know what to ask. So I'm like, okay, well, let's just see what comes out, you know, and then I'll just start pulling cards, and I'll say something, and then it'll trigger whatever it is that for them that needs to be talked about. And so that's generally how I do it. I haven't done a lot of email readings, but I have done some. And it's generally just like one card where kind of like what you said, I'll just choose a deck, a random deck, whatever I feel drawn to. And that's also something that I've noticed that I'm really good at is before I do a reading with somebody, I'll be intuitively drawn to different cards, because I use a lot of oracle cards too. And then it's just funny how it always works out. We're like, oh yeah, I was just thinking about that, or oh yeah, like the messages, it's like I know exactly what deck to choose for that person. It just ends up being really really important to them. And so that's how I notice that I can really tap into the person that I'm going to do a reading for, like beforehand, and that's really cool. So for the email reading, I'll just pull like one card and just do like a short paragraph message of whatever message is coming through. And but otherwise I do it through video chat. I really like to be face to face with the person, and I generally do 60-minute readings where I can do coaching as well.
Cool. Thanks, Bethany.
Yeah.
Now, Ivy, you just went to a party and you did readings like back to back to back.
Yeah.
How do you
I
deal with that?
crank those out when I have to. I've worked a couple bachelorette parties, a couple Halloween parties, just random things that people want. And typically in those parties, I try to limit it to maximum of 10 people.
Yeah.
That's really me expending. And that's the thing. If I have to, I can crank them out. I feel like at the end of the night, I'm usually so drained and so tired, and I don't even want to look at a deck. But I don't know. I think also in those spaces too, you start to build energy upon the people that you're reading for. And then they get excited about their reading. They start talking to other people, so the other people start getting excited. And so there's a lot to build off of there. And so it's a lot easier to crank it out in those party situations, because I feel like the energy is really good and really beneficial for me. Whereas, email, I'm not getting much back from these people because I'm just shooting it out there and hoping that, it resonates with them. Whereas here it's just more face-to-face and easier. Yeah. And I, of course, love to read in person for people, but I realized how many more people I could reach by doing email, because, I've read for people all over the world really without, needing to be there or meet them. And so I'm kind of glad I opened it up to that. And I'm glad that I'm able to do that, I guess.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've done that one time where I was doing an event, and I was doing 20-minute tarot card readings for people. And I think I did like maybe 11 or 12 people throughout like 4 or 5 hours. Maybe like 4, I don't know. But yeah, by the end of the night, I was just exhausted. Like I was like, I need to figure out how to take care of myself if I'm ever going to do this again, because it was way too much. I had a headache at the end, and my body couldn't relax. I couldn't go to sleep later that night. I was trying so hard, and just like my mind just felt full. And I was just clouded with everybody's energy. So it's so important to learn how to do self-care practices before and after those types of things, which I'm sure you've done for yourself. Like, how do you clear your energy? Like if you feel like you're working with a lot of people, or just one person whose energy is really strong and seems to like stick around, like what do you do to clear it?
Yeah, that's been a really, really big problem in my life forever. I think even when I'm not reading, I'm very perceptive to other people and their energies, and that's something I've just had to deal with, and it's given me a lot of anxiety and issues growing up.
Yeah.
One woman that I just really looked up to, she's a practicing witch, and she would always tell me to imagine a black box around myself whenever I felt that someone's energy was too much. And so that's something I use, and that's really, really helpful for me. And it's just a visualization technique, but honestly, it helps. And when I get done with readings, I always just try to do that like immediately when I'm done, because I'm like, nothing else can get through. I gave you my time, I gave you my space, and I don't want to give you anything else.
Right.
And so that's a big part of it. And I try to do cleansing rituals a lot.
Yeah.
And I cleanse my house a lot. I don't like stagnant energy hanging out, especially doing readings for so many people. Otherwise, I just feel like other people's energy is just hanging around my house, and other people feel it and other people pick up on it, and I just don't like it. So I just try to keep it very clean and flowing constantly as best as I can.
Right. Yeah.
How do you do that?
The cleansing rituals?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is I try to move away from smudging and try to use more sustainable things now. But I do a lot of Florida water. I do a lot of floor washes itself. I do a lot of ritual baths with like sea salt and things like that. Just so much. There's this one company online called Old Ways, old with a E at the end, and he sells this Florida water that's amazing. And it comes in this mister bottle, and I keep it in my purse, and I spray myself all the time. And I feel like it really helps with the cleansing and just kind of keep those barriers up. And I spray all around my room, and I don't know. And I just think keeping clutter out of the home is a really big cleansing ritual in itself. And so I very habitually clean and make sure things are just out there, because I just don't like any of that hanging out for any longer than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Which can be a challenge when you live with other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
We all have experienced in our own ways.
Yeah, that's why I try to at least make my own space, and especially like where my altar is and like where I do my readings and things like that. I'm like, at least this space needs to be sacred for me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it just won't happen. And I will notice that my readings and stuff are off because it's not the right space for it.
Totally.
That's interesting. Yeah. I had to train my husband, like, to know where the altars were in the house, because he would come in and he's like, oh, there's an open space. Let me just put my feet.
Right.
Oh, this is
that still happens. Sometimes like drinks will get put on there and they'll like shove things. I'm like, no.
Yeah. So I'm curious what other kinds of practices you do to kind of keep yourself in that woke space.
Yeah.
So
I definitely participate in meditation as often as I can. I started doing my brain has been all over the place, and so sometimes if I can only do 5 minutes, that's enough for me. I'm definitely I like the auditory things. Like I like to listen to affirmations on, like, even Apple Music has a couple really good affirmations and visualization techniques. I just try to get my space as often as I can, and I'm really thankful that I've been able to learn what my boundaries are and stay in that space as often as I can. I don't know what else I really do besides that. It's just mainly meditation and just visualization and just affirmations to myself to make sure that I'm feeling how I need to. And if I need to be alone, I'll absolutely just be alone and just listen to those things and have headphones in and just take a minute if I need to.
That's what I was going to ask, because for me, I have to spend a lot of time alone, like away from other people. Otherwise, I just like go crazy. So that's what I was going to ask. That's like one of the biggest thing I've noticed is like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm alone and I know that no one's going to interrupt my alone time, I'm good.
Right. Absolutely. And I feel like that's very grounding in itself.
Yeah. It gets you back connected with like your essence and like your center, so that you're aware of like what is yours and what's not.
Right. I think another really good grounding technique too is actually like earthing, like walking around with your bare feet in nature. I think that's really important. And just being by water also for some reason is super cleansing to me. And so I like to just even put my feet in any sort of running water. I'm like, I need this and this will feel good.
Yeah, totally. Just being outside too.
Yeah, I feel fortunate that we live so close to the ocean.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, me too. I live really close to the beach.
Yeah, your beach is a little nicer than ours.
Why? Why is
the sand?
Oh, our beach is like lots of rocks and kelp and
sea pickles.
Yes.
Sea pickles.
And crawfish. Yeah, which is cool, but it's not as
relaxing.
Yeah, we have some nice
you can like get your feet in the sand.
Yeah,
you're lucky.
Yeah. So, Ivy, because you are in my personal estimation starting out on this journey.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have a family that lives a long, long time.
Oh yeah. My great grandfather in India is 96 years old.
Nice.
Still kicking, doing just fine. Yeah. And I mean, so I was out there in February and I was talking to him. And so he only speaks Hindi and I do not. I know very minimal. So my grandfather was interpreting for both of us. But he was talking to me about astrology and how my family has this astrological curse, which is very interesting. Essentially, it's a Mars placement in our birth charts that consider as Manglik. And so what that is in India, when they do the arranged marriages, they do them by birth charts. And so they compare the birth charts, and whoever's most astrologically compatible for you is essentially who they'll pair you up with. But monthly people are not astrologically compatible with a lot of people because they're really stubborn, they're really quick tempered, they're just essentially a pain in the butt. And he said that all of us have it. And so a lot of us don't get married, don't have babies. We just kind of end a lot of the ancestral trauma just right at us, which I think is really interesting because a lot of my family members have not gotten married, have not had kids. I'm one of the only kids in my family. And so I don't know, I guess we'll see if I get married or have kids. But it was a very interesting conversation just to hear about that generation and how they perceive astrology and he really believes it's a curse. He was like saying his Mars is 1 degree off from being a king, and instead he has this curse. So it was a very interesting conversation to have. And
That's fascinating.
My 96-year-old great grandfather, but
Yeah.
So how do you think that influences you as you are, kind of setting out into the world, still in college? So,
yeah.
there's a lot of life left to go. And
Oh yeah.
so what do you see for yourself in the next, I don't know.
Yeah, I think honestly, all I can really expect of myself is a lot of growth, which I'm sure will happen regardless. But something that I really do hope, like I know with time, I just want to be able to trust my intuition more and more, and just be able to trust that I'm moving myself down the path that I'm meant to go on, and just, go with my gut feeling, especially about people and about relationships and things like that. Just know when it's right and when I'm forcing things, because I really don't want to live a life where I'm pushing against what's supposed to be for me. I just want to hopefully accept it and move forward. And, my business is something that really does mean a lot to me. And I would love to continue to do that and, have it be my full-time job again. That would be great. But I just need to get through the college part, and hopefully the rest will follow.
I'm curious. Now you're going into journalism, right?
Yeah, yep. I'm going into journalism with an emphasis in public relations and a minor in English. And the reason why I went into that was just because I love writing and I'm a good writer. And so through readings and things like that, especially with the email ones, I love just being able to type all that out and write it in a nice way that they could keep it and look back at it and reread it whenever they want. So yeah, I just kind of chose whatever would allow me to write, and I'm not really positive what I plan on doing with those things, but I just would like to write. And if that's just for me and my business, then that's what it is. But
well, and that can be enough.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly what anybody wants is the thing that fires them up. And
right, exactly. And that's the thing, I think a lot of it too is I've been in college for a little longer than I should have, but it's because I was forcing myself to do things that I wasn't actually happy with or comfortable with. Just because I thought that it would be a better opportunity for me. But then I realized I would much rather be doing something that makes me happy, and I actually want to be in class and doing the things that I'm doing. So writing is just one of those things that actually makes me happy and actually comes easily to me rather than forcing all these other things that don't resonate.
Yeah, that's really important.
what would support you in creating your unreasonable life? And by that I mean like create something that it seems so crazy to everybody else, but is exactly what your purpose is. So
Yeah.
what kind of activities, people, what do you see can support you in that?
Yeah, I think I'm moving away from external support. Right now, I'm just really trying to focus on internal support. I've realized that I base a lot of my value, my safety, just like all sorts of things on other people and other situations and circumstances. So I think as I move forward, I really want to be able to only look at me and have that be enough. Like I just want her to be the one who supports me, makes me feel comfortable, makes me feel safe, because in the end, that's all I'm going to have. And so I really just want to feel good about that. And I think how to get there requires so much and so much patience with those around me, because it's going to require a lot of introspection and a lot of healing and a lot of time. And so I'm just barely begun to scrape the surface of that. And I think, if I could have my unreasonable life, it would be an old spinster in the woods by myself. But I need to move inward and just figure that out. So
yeah. And that's what you see for yourself right now. And
oh, absolutely.
life
Yeah.
is long.
Yeah. And it can change. And I think right now, just the main thing is trying to love Ivy like Ivy needs to be loved.
Yes.
Wise words. Man, I'm 30 years ahead of you and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right?
Yeah. So what's up for your, like, in the near future? What do you see happening, you know?
Yeah, for myself, well, definitely graduating is going to happen, which is nice. I'm starting a new website for my business, which is good. I'm hoping to be a little more hands-off with it because I don't have an actual website where people can order through me. They always have to DM me or email me. And so I'm just hoping that I could be a little more hands-off with the technical side of it and just do a lot more marketing and focus on the readings itself rather than making appointments and things like that when I could definitely have software that does that for me. So that's definitely a big thing. And I would like to expand and kind of up my game with what I do because I have, personal spells that I sell on my website. And so I make these like little bath spells or small little rituals that people can do for themselves at home. And I just kind of want to up that and up the quality and keep moving. And I think the new year is always a really good time to do that because I like to do spells of the month and just keep it going and just go back and figure out what didn't work and try to do better in those aspects. So I think just growing the business a little bit more and continuing on my self-care journey. That's about it probably for my near future.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have anything you want to ask Bethany?
They're more like personal questions that maybe when we're not recording, I would ask you.
We can always record it and cut it out if it's
true. No,
or Ivy can just say pass.
I really want to work with her, so I'm like, that's really what I want to ask. So, no, I'm just curious just to learn more about. Well, I mean, maybe you can give us an example of like a type of spell that you would do, like, or if you want to give us some insight into that.
Yeah, one of the spells that I really like doing is I have a grounding spell that I've kind of made. It's like a collection of herbs, some lavender, some Dead Sea salt, comes with black tourmaline and some Florida water and also like a little Palo Santo bundle. And essentially I have it in like a little, I don't even know, just the
little bag.
Yeah, it's like a bag. I don't know. I think you just put yours in the bag so it didn't get everywhere.
Yeah, I did.
Which is kind of a really, really smart idea because I never thought about how that definitely clogs your drain. But that's kind of an example. And I also do like love spells for people. And if I just am doing like the simple spell kits, I just mail them the spell kit in the bag, whatever, and then I email them the in-depth instructions on what they do. But if people want to do more in-depth stuff, because I try to tell people, spells are a lot of intention and a lot of what feels right for you, as I was saying before. And so if people feel like it wasn't enough or they want to do more work, I'm more than willing to do extra work with people and make sure that they're cultivating a ritual that actually makes sense for them. Mm-hmm. So that's why I like to bring the personal aspect and really make sure, they're creating something for themselves. They're not just doing something because I told them to do it or they think it's the right thing to do. Right. But yeah, I do a lot of love spells, grounding spells, money spells. I think money spells are definitely ones that people really love to buy. And
yeah, definitely.
Hey,
money and then also love. I was going to ask, with a love spell, is it like people coming to you like with someone specific they're trying to do a spell on, or is it just like in general wanting to attract more love into your life, or what is it? I'm just curious.
People love to come to me with their desires to make a certain person fall in love with them, or to hex an ex-boyfriend or something. And I always tell people, I'm like, that is not on me. If you want to do that on your own time and your own terms, by all means go ahead, but that's not something I want to do. Yeah. So typically with the love spells, I say if you want to think of like a specific type of mate, like writing down like the attributes you want your mate to have, I feel like that's a much better option than trying to put a love spell on someone, because I feel like that has a lot of negative repercussions that you don't really want. And also, what if you're not meant to be with this person and then you're stuck with them and it's just not really worth it to me. Right. But yeah, there's a lot of very interesting requests I get for spells, and so I definitely have to put some barriers on those and not deal with it. And I especially I don't like doing hexing for other people. I feel like I've personally only hexed 2 people in my lifetime, and I feel confident and fine with that because I think it was necessary for the time being, but I just don't like to do that for other people, and they have to know that they want to do that on their own and they want to deal with the repercussions of that on their own. I'm not going to create karma for myself or other people, Yeah,
totally.
So not necessary for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, people are coming from it from that place then too. It's like they don't have pure intentions, you know, like it's,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
yeah. It's, have you ever had to
Well,
like,
and
sorry, have you ever had to turn somebody
no, go
away?
ahead.
You're like, I just can't work with you, or I can't do this. I'm not going to do this for you.
Yeah, I turn away people a lot actually, and I feel very comfortable in that. At first, I used to get really nervous because, I was like, I want the money, like I, feel like I should do this, and I didn't feel comfortable saying no to people. But now I have no problem saying no to people.
Yeah.
I'm like, and also it's a kind of an energy thing too. Like if someone's coming to me kind of weird and wants me to do, spell for them, I just will turn them down. And there's been a couple people where I had, regulars doing readings, but then at some point I just didn't feel comfortable with them anymore. And I'll just say, sorry, I can't do your readings anymore, or maybe come back in a couple months, or, just right now is not the time.
Right.
And so I just had to feel comfortable saying that to people. And sometimes people just take way too much of my time and energy, like especially after I give a reading. I don't mind a couple questions, but some people really want like a second more in-depth reading after I do a reading. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
sorry, this is not what I'm being paid for right now. So just knowing my boundaries with that for sure.
Yeah. It's so important.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you see as supportive in your community? Because I totally get the, wanting to take care of Ivy and to be your own source of support. And I also, because I was like that for a long time.
Yeah.
Far in the way, it's like, I got to take care of myself first because nobody else is going to do it. But
Yeah.
where I'm at in my life now, I'm realizing the value
Support
of being vulnerable and asking for support, knowing that it's nobody's responsibility to step in, but giving the people that I know, love, and care about me the opportunity to step in and be my support. And that's partly why this podcast got started, because Bethany and I really want to create a women's retreat, and we both have these communities of amazing women.
Yeah.
We need to be there for each other and with each other.
Yeah.
For no other reason than just to bear witness to somebody supporting
yeah.
themselves and saying, yes, look at you supporting yourself. That's amazing.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, I feel like I really, before I moved to Washington, when I lived in Colorado, I used to cry all the time because all I wanted was a good group of girlfriends. And it was all I wanted. And it was so hard to find them. And when I moved here, I came here with the intentions. I was like, I'm going to find my group if it's the last thing I do. And just, a week or two ago, I realized I had created this group, and we really have nothing. Like when I look at all my friends, we really don't have a lot in common. Like we're all pretty different people, different paths, different everything. But I was like, the only thing we all have in common is that we love each other and we're very supportive of each other. And I feel like that's, all I've ever wanted. And so it is nice to have that group of women. And I think it really, for me, it really was a group of women. Like I needed that femininity. I needed that comfort and that care. And so finding that here was such a game changer for me. And it really made me feel a lot more comfortable in myself and, sharing my emotions with others and, realizing that I don't have to carry everything on my own and letting other people, help me unpack some of the things that I was unpacking. So that's definitely been a good aspect. And I think I do have a really nice support group out here. And I try to use that as often as I can. And it's definitely fun just to also be able to take the load off and just have fun with them and not think about anything else but hanging out. And
yeah, absolutely. I'd say that's something that I recently did for myself too, is I didn't really have, I have one best friend who I've known her since 8th grade, and she's been like my one friend that kind of stuck with me. I mean, I have some other friends too, but like I never really got super close to friends like after high school, and so as an adult, after I went through my spiritual awakening, I was like, I need women. Like, when I'm with a woman and I can be myself, that's when I feel most authentic and like a woman, instead of feeling like I fit in with the guys or something, which isn't which is easy for me to do too, but it's just so much different when you can really connect with a woman on an intimate level and just be yourself,
Right. I think women, like, not to put a big generalization on us, but I think a lot of us have gone through a lot of the same things. And so it's really nice to bond in those ways and just have people to talk to and just kind of know that we're all kind of going through it. And we've all experienced, the adversities that we have. And so that's definitely helpful to know that someone's been in a similar position as you and can understand, the challenges that you've had to overcome just by being a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, show. Reach.
Oh God, yes, queen.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Is there anything else that you want to promote, put out in the space? Any important message that you feel like needs to be said?
Be kinder to ourselves, honestly. I think just being very gentle and just trusting that things that are supposed to happen will happen, and everything that we want or, you know, hope to have is already ours, and we just have to wait for it to come, because, you know, it will come to us, and you just have to trust that. And I think there's a lot of tension and a lot of people are pushing back against things, myself included, and it's just, you know, allowing things to happen as they need to happen, and allowing yourself to be nice to you, because that's important too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Cool. Well, how can we get a hold of you? How can our listeners get a hold of you? And
Yeah, so I'm, like I said, I'm working on a website right now, so it's a little disheveled at the moment, but I do have Facebook and Instagram, and both of those are the Power of Ive, or the Power of Four. It's the Roman numeral, and my name's Ivy, so it's kind of a play on both. So however you want to look at that is fine. And then I also just, through there is kind of the easiest way, but if people want to email me too, that's also a good way to contact me for readings. My email is just ivym4401@gmail.com, and people could just email me through there and have any inquiries or questions, and I could help them through that.
cool. And we'll add that to the show notes as well. So if you're watching and you're like, didn't catch that, just check down below, I think. Yeah.
Something.
That's where it lands. I'm pretty sure.
You'll find it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ivy. It was such a pleasure. I loved hearing your story. And I can't wait to work with you too.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned. We've got more conversations.
All right. Bye.
Bye.